We are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing. And because of that war, because of the fact that the U.S. military is killing Russians in Russia right now, we are closer to nuclear war than at any time in history.
Fired Fox host Tucker Carlson has returned to Russia to interview Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. You remember the guy Donald Trump allegedly revealed classified information to the first time he was president, while in the White House with Russian but not U.S. media present in the room. The subject of the Tucker interview was the ongoing war in Ukraine. Recall that Carlson traveled there earlier this year, sitting down for a quite sycophantic interview with Vladimir Putin after touring and marveling at Moscow's far superior grocery stores. It was Putin's first interview with an American, quote, journalist since before his invasion of Ukraine. And by interview, we mean an exchange of anti-Ukrainian propaganda, distortion, and lies. Tucker isn't the only darling of Russian state TV that's making noise. Some of Putin's loudest mouthpieces are just giddy over the clown car that is Trump's proposed cabinet. Per reporting by Julia Davis of the Daily Beast, who monitors Russian state TV, host Vladimir Solovyov and host and head of RT Margarita Simonyan are rejoicing over Trump's picks, especially Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, predicting, quote, they will quickly dismantle America brick by brick. Joining me now is Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia and an MSNBC international affairs analyst. Ambassador McFaul, thank you so much for being here. Your thoughts on the equivalent of, Russian 60 Minutes, the hosts therein giddy and laughing that Donald Trump's picks for his cabinet, particularly Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, will dismantle America brick by brick.
Well, first, one qualification. It's the equivalent of their 60 Minutes, except as 60 Minutes controlled 100% by the Kremlin. So that when you hear from Solovyov and Margarita Simonyan, these are not just independent journalists giving their opinion. These are opinions closely coordinated with the Kremlin. And once said that, it's even worse, right? Because you're right. They're cheering on those people that, particularly the ones you just named, cabinet picks, are not so excited about some others. We'll get to that later. Maybe Senator Rubio, for instance, is not as popular, but they like these folks for one simple reason. Putin has a theory of the American deep state, and he thinks the American deep state is antithetical to Russian interests. And when he sees these people, he thinks they are going to weaken this so-called deep state. And, they've declared revolution against the state, right? And so if we're having a revolutionary fight within the U.S. government, within the Pentagon, within the FBI, within the intelligence community, who benefits from that? Vladimir Putin.
Right. And I can imagine that the idea of, whoever the defense secretary will be, we can presume they'll have the same agenda. They call it dismantling the quote unquote woke agenda. By woke, they generally mean any minority, right? So LGBTQ people of color, they want to run them out. They want to, in Hegseth's case, take away the prohibitions on people with certain tattoos that have been, that the current administration has tried to get out of the military to reduce the amount of extremism. If they're fighting over that and not letting women get reproductive care, and those are the fights they're having, that helps the Kremlin, I'm assuming.
Exactly. You're talking about our warriors, right? I'm using that word on purpose. Our warriors that defend America, not just against Russia, but also China. If we're not equipping them to do their job in deterring an attack on the United States, shoring up our NATO allies so that we don't have to fight Vladimir Putin. It's incorrect what Tucker said, by the way, that we're in a war with Russia and close to nuclear war. That's completely hogwash. But our job, we want to defend America. That's what the warriors at the Pentagon want to do. And if we're having declaring war against them, that benefits our adversaries. It's just straight up. It's black and white. If we're fighting them, they are not doing their job to protect the American people.
Let me read you a little bit more. Russian State TV, this is some more of this reporting. Evgeny Popov, the co-host of Russia's version of 60 Minutes, described Trump's picks as his radical dream team and gleefully noted all of them personally despise Zelensky. He cautiously added, they aren't friends of Russia except, for Tulsi Gabbard. One more thing. Julia Davis also reported that during Sunday's broadcast of State TV of the evening with Vladimir Solovyov, a program Putin watches regularly, host Vladimir Solovyov aired a clip of Kash Patel threatening to upend the FBI's operations. And Solovyov said, Trump's nominee to head the FBI, Kash Patel, is simply on fire. He's tremendously, really, really good. What do you think that they think they'll get out of somebody, like either of these two people, Kash Patel or any of them? What do they think that they'll do to their respective agencies, particularly Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, first, I hope Solovyov is wrong. I want to be clear about that. I hope that maybe they're giddy about things that might not happen here. But what they're hoping for is the destruction and the weakening of the intelligence community in the United States. What they're hoping for is the weakening of the FBI. These are agencies. They have a phrase for it in Russian, the siloviki. These are the strong ministries. These are the ministries that do the most to defend the United States against Russia. And if we weaken these kinds of agencies, the CIA, FBI, the Pentagon, that makes Russia better off. And so if Solovyov says you're a really great hire, that makes me nervous, because Solovyov, I know him. I used to know him. He is no friend of the United States. He is an enemy of the United States. He is paid by the Kremlin to propagate against American national interests.
And there's Tucker Carlson cheering it all on and cheering against Ukraine on Russian soil. You can't make this up. Ambassador Michael McFaul, thank you so much.